Hey, it's Mike Matthews. What a delight to be talking about the future of schools. It's a bold and smart new future for those who are willing to participate. You know, as Facebook mentions Metaverse, now Microsoft and Apple Computer as well, we can see the future slightly better than we have before. These are trillion-dollar companies now, all competing not for the personal computer space or social media, but the metaverse. And we get to partake in that if we're willing to understand what it really means to all of us. So I'm delighted to present a little bit. Thank you for the other panelists who were part of this discussion out of Bangalore, India, thanks to Indus International Schools. My presentation is going to be focused on a brief overview of artificial intelligence. I think people are misled by it to some degree. Then talk a little bit about the futures of schools. They're going to be smart schools. And then the future of schools are integrated in part of the hyper-connected world that we now find ourselves in. And then the future of schools include IQ, EQ, SQ, and MQ. So you may learn a little bit about MQ today. Futures of schools are metaverse-centric. Metaverse-centric. Why? Because these leading companies are going down that path, and they've taken years now to invest billions to prove that augmented reality and virtual reality are truly at the center of how the world will learn in the future. So as we take a look at the future, we may find out it's already here. In fact, a lot of the things I'll be sharing with you are things we've been doing at Oral Roberts University for the last 6 years. And if we would have known the word metaverse at that time, we probably would have used it. We used a term called GeoVision technology, but much the same. And then how do we accelerate our mind and imagination to move into the future? So a brief overview of artificial intelligence, very important for people to know. Number one, AI can never possess faith, hope, or love. It's impossible. AI can merely learn the patterns of routine, behavior, and our actions and start putting those in the computer system, and it learns our patterns of behavior. So in other words, it can help me do the routine things of life, but it can never do the things of my relationships, how I interact with my spouse or my kids. It cannot replace that. It's impossible for it to do it. Not because I say it, it's all scientists have known that for years. But it is powerful, and if we could actually take AI and reprioritize our routine so we're not always buried behind the job at hand or task at hand, we would have more opportunity to be liberated about the things that really matter in life. And so AI truly is a technology that can be used to nudge us and give us feedback in a healthy way. And again, there's a lot of fallacies about AI, but I think this summarizes the things that are important as we look at the future of smart schools. So AI, or artificial intelligence, is not a replacement technology. It's an embedded technology in automobiles, maybe even washers and dryers, your smartphone today. And this is a nice way to look at it. This diagram here shows data, artificial intelligence, and value. That's very broad. But if you break it down, it really begins to be data that's accelerated and more accurate because of the predictability of past patterns of behavior. And so we can see that it's an embedded technology in systems and devices. And so, for instance, I may be a university or a K-12 system and say, you know, I really got to be careful about the ethics of artificial intelligence. And as soon as you say that, you realize, oh, students are driving on your campus, or if they're a junior or senior in high school, they're coming on your campus, maybe in a new car that already has artificial intelligence and machine learning embedded into it. And you just maybe bought a washer and dryer and you find out, oh, it's already there. And that's important to note because so many people are trying to say, do I replace something with AI? No, there's not much replacement because it's not a replacement technology. It's added or augmented to who we are and what systems already know to do. Now, Mo Gawdat formed an organization based on his knowledge of artificial intelligence called 1billionhappy.org. He knew this very theory that all AI can do is learn our patterns of behavior. And he thought to himself, what if AI learns the negativity of humanity? Hatred, resentment towards each other, spite, debate that's unhealthy. And so he forms and says, I want 1 billion people to be happy so AI can learn what it is to be happy. Now, I give him a lot of credit. He's up there. You can go out and look at 1billionhappy.org. He's did a phenomenal thing. However, happy may not be the right measurement. If we want AI to learn a pattern of our behavior, it could be that pattern of behavior is contentment or joy. Happy is so elusive. Do I have enough jobs? Do I have enough money? Do I have enough friends? Very elusive and deceiving. And so we have to be careful, because what are we trying to learn or let AI observe about human patterns of behavior? So keep that in mind. Go out and look at 1billionhappy.org. But what if you started something called 1billionjoyful or 1billioncontent.org? You get the point. Now, as we take a look at what we're talking about, futures of schools, the futures of schools are smart. They're going to include smart technology. In fact, if you could actually take any education system and break it up between students and the systems, you've got a great thing going on, because now you can start piecing everything together and not let systems run away with things or have humans be onerous to the systems. And so we begin an intelligent choice decision-making pattern if we can use artificial intelligence and machine learning. And you get the point. We got a smart mobile access, and suddenly everything comes together. And that's the best way I like to describe things, is that what if we could take the human intelligence and connect it with the system so there's more understanding of who I am as a person? How content is Mike? How happy is Mike? Yes. But also, how intelligent is Mike? But just as important, how good is Mike at relationships? Or what does Mike view about himself? You get the point that we can now start connecting these together. In fact, Oral Roberts University, thanks to some work we did in India, in fact, there's a whole chapter on this now in a book on neuroscience of learning that calls it humanware. How do we connect the two together in a healthy and vibrant fashion? And so one of the things that we have to do as technologists is, what do the systems look like? If AI is going to be embedded in all systems, how do we connect these systems, and who's really using the systems? I've seen so many people deceived by computer systems and technology as if that's going to do anything. The fact is, without good human thought, good human planning, and then good design, we get misled by the technology, and we are always redoing or always trying to improve on the technology, when in fact, if you design it smart or in a smart fashion, you can begin to see systems interact with individuals. And so here, in fact, a couple years ago, we came up with the first virtual reality education system. We knew enough that augmented and virtual reality were going to take off, but we also knew that you needed a way to integrate with all your systems. So we started 6 years ago an enterprise-wide augmented and virtual reality system, immersive learning in a way that would be used on a smartphone. In fact, this small pair of glasses right here goes on the end of anybody's smartphone, and they do virtual reality for $10. Why? That's smart. Because to put goggles around my head all the time and go into a repository doesn't make much sense. But to use my smartphone, which most people have, I can now access millions of pieces of learning environments through immersive learning, and now tie that to my grade book, a blockchain or digital certificate, and everything does fit together. And that's really what the metaverse is. It's everything starting to fit together in a very healthy fashion. So you can look this diagram over. Please feel free to contact me if you've got any questions about what is a virtual reality education system. Well, it's a step better than a student information system or a learning management system, but it all integrates with those, because we need each and every one of those to pull off. How do we help people from the beginning to the end so they get good jobs? We tie all the technology together in a smart fashion. And so the future school will include immersive learning. The metaverse is all set up to be augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, extended reality, whatever you want to call it. And it begins the journey for people to learn in a different fashion. And we've been part of that. Back in 2016, Oral Roberts University said, let's flip the university. So if you look up or Google flipped university, my name, Michael Matthews, 1T in Matthews, or Oral Roberts University, you'll see many articles written on this. Why? Because we didn't want to just flip a classroom, give out some videos. We wanted people to be fully engaged, fully immersed in their learning journey. It was just the smart thing to do. And so we could have called it the metaverse back then. In fact, I was over in China probably about 5 years ago, and I showed this exact diagram with the astronauts floating around, as you see there. And the next year I go back to China, go to their White House equivalent, the Great House, and they've got the same now image. They improved it slightly, and I found that interesting, that people start catching the metaphor through immersive learning, through ways we say, let's do education in a smarter way. So you can see in front of you the flipped classroom, the definitions of it, or the definition of it. Many people caught on to the flipped classroom And it's not a big feat though, sending somebody home with a video, come back and let's collaborate together. But what if we could flip the whole school, your K-12 system or school, or your private school or your university? Whatever the case may be, a flipped university is a different education model. Why? Because it's done smartly. It integrates everything so that people around the world can partake in the great things that you've integrated together. But the great things you've understood in the human heart, or what the science would call the second brain. The second brain is great, but the primary brain is great too. But what if you could connect the two and actually let systems help you understand who you are and what you do? And I'll show a couple examples of that shortly. So this is an interesting story. Back during the pandemic, a school passed out the ThinkPads, I think there were, may have been Dell computers. This is my granddaughter actually. And my wife, Pam, happened to be on the scene when she took her first Zoom class during the pandemic. And you can see in a 1 hour window of time, that's our granddaughter. She's a little outspoken or expressive, and she's bored to begin with on the left, you can see. Then she gets really bored, and now she throws a blanket over her head. It was non-engaging. There was nothing smart about just having Zoom available. Zoom is just a communicative tool that allows us to see each other, but it doesn't guarantee that you're engaging anyone. Now, our granddaughter, 1 month later, came to Oral Roberts University, and we put her in immersive learning. Oh, their school could have did the same thing, but you get the point. Much more engaging because they feel a part of it. So back to my $10 pair of glasses, clipping it on my smartphone and walking around in immersive learning, which is what my granddaughter's doing in a different way, is pretty smart. Pretty useful because everybody has a smartphone, or most people have access to a smartphone. And so this is another example. K-12 system, Nathan Hale High School, part of the Tulsa Public School System. Dr. Sheila Riley caught on right away. And now they've set up a lab very similar about a year ago. And they can now be immersed into different things. And so I show on the left side of the screen a famous VR teacher, painter named Anna Dreambrush. You can do a Google on her name, Anna Dreambrush. And she will show you how influential and how engaging education can be if you're helping people be engaged. It's good, smart design, but remember back to a couple diagrams ago, I'm showing you that the VRES, or Virtual Reality Education System, is embedded in the overall system design. That's good design. And AI, of course, is embedded in there in a couple different places, but we never set out to say, hey, let's become an AI school, or let's do AI versus something else. It's automatically there. What's important is that the minds of great teachers and great leaders, great technologists come together and start designing the future, because it's already here and you're just learning about some of it now. In fact, here's a couple other photos I took that same day about the engagement of people in virtual reality, or what we would say immersive learning. Here's an article that is published in a couple different places, and if you're interested, I'll send it to you, but it's really creating a smart campus ecosystem. We've been doing this for 5 years, as I mentioned, gave numerous talks on this topic, and you can see on the front cover of CIO Views magazine, but also the subtitle is "Winner Takes All When Students Are at the Center of Campus Design." You see, don't make artificial intelligence the center of design. Don't make technology at the center, or even the curriculum. Why don't we make the students the center of good design? If we do that, we will find out that students are fully engaged. In fact, we have proven that with immersive learning, with virtual and augmented reality, that we can reach the top of Bloom's taxonomy, which is to create engaged students in a different way in every subject matter. Why? Because they truly are engaged. They're learning how to create things. In fact, our sports management class, Dr. Terry Shannon, has her students create Olympic-sized sports stadiums in virtual reality as their final exam. And he has them has the students take the classmates and walk them through their Olympic-sized pool they designed in virtual reality, or their football field, soccer stadium, whatever the case may be. And so we see numerous classes, our anatomy class, walking people through virtual reality, and the learning goes up as much as 1,400%. And we've proven that. You can call me if you want the data on that. Why? Well, because students want to be creative. They want to have the freedom to do more than just memorize what's going to be on the test or the notes, what the professor said. This is a different breakup of Bloom's taxonomy, 2 dimensions, the cognitive dimension, the knowledge dimension. You can see all the way up, we finally can pass knowledge and intelligence in different ways if we allow people to have access to hundreds of thousands of virtual reality or augmented reality environments, which is now doable today. And that's what makes the metaverse a foregone conclusion. Facebook has a lot more money than Oral Roberts University, as you would know, but so does Microsoft and Apple combined. And so before long, we'll all find ourselves fully immersed into different aspects of learning, training, and applying that which we have learned and been trained on. It's an exciting day. Now let's move on a little bit to the futures of schools are integrated and part of the hyper-connected world. The hyper-connected world, what is that? Well, let me try and explain it this way. Let's say that I bought a new car last month. I found out that I can no longer go to the auto dealership and say, hey, can you skip that anti-skid brake feature that you have? Or the autonomous feature that you have in the car to warn me when I'm getting too close to the shoulder of the road, or I cross the median, or a car is too close to me. It's all integrated today. It's all integrated almost to the point that we can do a little bit of self-driving, a little bit of autonomous driving, some would call it, and it's just a matter of time before that really takes off. But that makes you be creative. I'm taking a long road trip maybe about a month ago, and I say to myself, you know, when that day comes, I'm hoping it's soon, by the way, so I could have been accomplishing other things while I'm driving. But if that day comes, I don't want the same features inside the car. I think I want a recliner. I think I want a pillow that is able to be taken out, and I can nap a little bit once I get there. You get the point. But we're already there with all these features that are completely integrated on an automobile. Now, how did that happen? I believe it happened this way. That the auto industry went through 4 iterations of transformation. Some would call it disruptive change. I call it transformation. That went through that 4 iterations to get to this point where it's all integrated together. Now, the National Intelligence Council has put together a fabulous report this past year, and it talks about the hyper-connected world, that all this stuff is hyper-connected thanks to the Internet of Things, thanks to immersive learning, thanks to blockchain a little bit, thanks to numerous different things that have come together with data that allows the world to be connected in ways we never thought possible. All documented, all pretty factual. The problem is education hasn't gone through those 4 iterations yet, like the auto industry. We're only on iteration 1. It was called the pandemic, where people believe we can do things different, but we have to do them smarter. We're not forced to do things different to be different. We should smartly design something for the betterment of other individuals. And so in 2021, you can see the National Intelligence Council put together this diagram, but in 2015, Oral Roberts University already put together our definition of GeoVision technology. It all comes together that we could reach people around the world in fresh, new ways. And so I mentioned before slightly that there's this book called Neurosystemic Applications in Learning. Chapter 18 is called Merging Education Systems with Humanware. I happen to be the author of that chapter, but it reminded me that, Mike, you're not that smart. Yes, you got a chapter in a book, you've written other books, you've spoken numerous places, United Nations, the White House, but big deal. When you look at Nikola Tesla, who already knew this stuff years before, it's just the world didn't catch up until now to his very thought about frequencies and power and wireless. How would he have known that stuff? Well, he was truly genius. In fact, Albert Einstein was once asked, what's it like being the smartest man in the world? And he responded by saying, I really don't know. You're going to have to ask Nikola Tesla. And I believe Nikola Tesla was that brain that could have helped the world back then, but we're finally catching up to his thought. And so that moves me into this concept of humanware. How would we describe that? The new middleware and integration used in ed tech design that takes best of all technology and appreciates how each human functions, thinks, learns, creates, and applies knowledge. In other words, you put the students at the center of design and you treat it as it's important, but then you tie technology to that understanding. That would be a good definition of humanware. And so technology by itself does not improve student outcomes or educational models. However, when augmented with the whole human, IQ, EQ, SQ, and MQ, it all makes the difference for individuals. And we'll talk a little bit about those different intelligence models shortly. So as we talk about being smarter, integrating, this is a perfect example. It's been documented that young people who are playing Fortnite on their smartphone or on their computer, their brain is accelerated 1,000 times more than sitting in a classroom. Wow. How does a teacher compete against that? 1,000 times more my brain is accelerated when I'm engaged in some kind of gaming activity, like Fortnite. wow, that's pretty good, but it's actually recognizing the human aspect of who we are. In fact, Albert Einstein had proven that each human has as much energy as 7 atomic bombs if you use the theory of relativity. Body mass times the speed of light squared is the amount of energy we possess. But sitting in a classroom does not necessarily exercise that energy, or manifest it, I should say. But all of a sudden, these technologies have allowed people to exercise and accelerate who they really are. Wouldn't it be neat to find out who each person is if you would take the time? And then smartly design what's really happening. And so science has proven something called your second brain. It's actually the neurons in your intestines. And it actually communicates with your brain all the time. In fact, it communicates more with your brain than your brain does with it. Second brain, look it up. But there's an organization called HeartMath Institute. And it proves the point that everyone gives off energy. Everybody's heart really does matter. But do we care about their heart, or do we care about only their intellect? You know, education is set up to honor the intellect of the brain, but not necessarily the feelings of the human being. And I believe HumanWare starts accounting for that. And we begin the journey of understanding what's really happening in each person, and now can use technology to connect the two together. That's HumanWare. And I'm delighted to be part of that discovery, if you would, HumanWare, be documented. But again, it's only the scratching of the surface when you think of the future of schools. And so you can see heart rhythms. And this will get your attention a little bit. You see, when a child is in a mother's womb, their second brain, or their heart, is communicating with the mother's brain all the time. But the mother's heart's communicating with the child's brain, and that's called synchronicity. And it's happening all the time. And that makes the mother-child bond so strong, because of that connectedness. Imagine if we could have relationships with each student that is that strong, because we appreciate who they are and their innermost being, if you would, or second brain, as science calls it, is connected with your intellect, but your intellect is connected with theirs, and vice versa, I should have said. You get the point. We have the opportunity to take all the knowledge of the world and start bringing it together to help the whole person. Body, mind, and spirit. Now at Oral Roberts University, we're blessed because 55 years ago, the Chancellor Oral already figured it out. He said it publicly. He just didn't have the scientific evidence to prove it, but we do today. In fact, Oral Roberts University has the second fastest computer in the state of Oklahoma, probably the fastest amongst private institutions. And we're blessed now because we can prove the theories that were said years ago and help people even more. And so think about, how would we use this thing called metaverse? Well, we'd have to smartly design all the systems, but we would make it immersive, and we would begin to understand how people receive information, process information, create things, and change their world for them. You see, their world, or the quickest metaverse or simplest metaverse, is inside everyone's mind. What do I really imagine my life to be? Who do I imagine myself to be? Is my own metaverse. If I can help people understand that, I can connect them to the bigger metaverse of all the knowledge that's available to people. You know, my heart is passion beyond what anybody could imagine when I know the fact that only 6% of the world has any form of post-high school diploma, certificate, or degree. We've made it way too complicated. We've made it way too inaccessible. Even though we say it's good at access, it's not. Oral Roberts University, through going down this pathway 5 years ago, has went from helping people in 85 nations attend college at Oral Roberts University in Tulsa, Oklahoma, to 126. But it's the caring of our faculty, it's the caring of our president, it's the caring of people for other people. The technology is sort of in the background. We're designing the technology to be integrated, hyper-connected, to help the caring for people. And that's really HumanWare and what we talk about. And so as I take a look, you know, 10 years ago, I worked on a project which got me to the White House, was how do I help people navigate? Now today, with artificial intelligence and machine learning, I could do it even quicker. In fact, if I go back on this diagram here, 1 second, you'll see that this video will play, and that video was designed 12 years ago. Artificial intelligence makes it work flawlessly today. Now that's caring for people first, and then designing the technology second, putting students at the center of good, smart design, and making sure all the hyper-connectedness of technology and people is factored in. Now, here's the results from 2016 to 2021 for Oral Roberts University. Again, I can speak for Oral Roberts University because I work here, and I've been here for 7 years working on what we call the GeoVision technology, which embedded all this stuff. began our own version of the metaverse before the metaverse became cool or even known. Now that's a privilege, of course, but here's the net result. What good is all this stuff if you can't prove that it's making a difference? But again, keep in mind, all these improvements over the past 5 years have because of great leadership by our president, Dr. William Wilson. But it's also because of our president's cabinet making the right choices at the right time. But just as importantly, it's all the staff and all the professors who care about students first and foremost. I'm only in the background listening to them, watching them, and then trying to design technology to be at the center of the students' universe, their metaverse. So you can see, and again, we're not here to brag or anything, but we're here to say we've got numerous stories out there. You can look them up, hundreds of them. Front covers of magazines talking about how we've been designing things based on the student being at the center. In other words, I'm saying you can talk about the school of the future, but what if I told you the future was already here? You just forgot to integrate it. You forgot to think through it. You forgot to design the student first and then tie technology to it. You didn't buy a system and now force students to accommodate the system. It should be the other way around. Now, here's some of the awards that we've won through time the last 2 years. Probably over 20 awards collectively. You can take a look at those real briefly. Again, not to brag, but to validate that what we've been working on truly did matter for our students. So take a look. This is in the USA Today 6 years ago, I believe, 5 to 6 years ago. New Frontier of Learning, Immersive Learning. There it is, the Global Learning Center that was put in 2017 to meet the needs of a very needy world. And so when we think about a mission of a Chief Information Officer, now I'm called a Vice President for Innovation and Technology. Some would call my trade being a Chief Information Officer or a technologist. My job is to help people survive and thrive in the digital age that we all find ourselves within. And here you can see that Wall Street Journal, 2 years in a row, maybe even 3, I can't remember the numbers, 2 or 3, that we've been ranked in the top 10 in America for engagement amongst all universities. I think this year we were number 4. And again, you look at the schools that are on that list and you say, wow, this is incredible, because those were future schools maybe years ago where everyone wanted to go to Harvard, everyone wanted to go to this school, but now people want to be at Oral Roberts University. Why? Because we put students first. Students should always be first. There's no university if there's no students. And we want successful students. In fact, our placement rate, if you look back at the chart, is 99%. And it's going on for a couple years now. And so we're delighted in that. And one of the best things that technology can do when done right is it allows us to be more diverse. It allows students to have choices. And when the pandemic came, we were able to flip over in one day and be virtual. Then when we came back, for safety purposes, we became a hybrid, where we do every class, both virtual and traditional. We give people choice, but it makes us far more diverse than we've ever been before. As we move into the next topic of futures of schools, it includes IQ, EQ, SQ, and MQ. Let me just take a moment or two and describe, to the best of my ability, what that means. Here's a diagram here that would say IQ is the intelligence of the brain, okay, intellectual intelligence. EQ is emotional intelligence, okay? And people have found, wow, emotional intelligence is just as important as IQ or intellectual intelligence. But then people started realizing, what if we could understand spiritual intelligence? No matter what faith you are, what religion you are, it doesn't matter, that you have a spiritual component to you that's important to know. And so that's known as SQ today. You can Google it and find all kinds of resources for that. But it wasn't too long after that Oral Roberts University said, what if we could have mirrored intelligence? And what is mirrored intelligence? Well, it's the intelligence that I was mentioning before a little bit, just didn't use those terms. What do I believe about myself? Do I believe in myself? I don't know. But if I could look in a mirror and the mirror helps me understand who I am by saying commands into it, I might change who I believe I really am. And that's exactly what the MQ mirror does. Mirrored intelligence, so it tells me, I can say this command in that mirror, launch, who am I? It'll go out, it'll ask me my name, it'll go out and pick up what the meaning of my name is in the names database. But I can program it to do anything that's truthful to help an individual. I can bring up my grade book, I can bring up my bank statement, I can bring everything up. Why? Because I already stated, we live in a hyper-connected world, and it can be all hyper-connected on the back of that smart TV with a mirror on the front of it. And if you look up MQ Mirror, you'll see numerous articles have been published by a couple TV spots that have been taken out and did a story on it. But again, we're delighted that we could actually help people at that level to say, who are you? Who do you want to be? We believe in you. Can you believe in yourself? And so I go back to the kindergarten, when you got to play with shapes, colors, sizes, and so forth. But then they asked you, you want to be the line leader? And the significance that a kindergarten person feels, or a first grader, when they get to be the line leader is incredible. But they never got to be a line leader based off their intelligence like we do when we get to high school and college. So as we talk about helping people, what if we could actually help people in a different way? I'm holding in front of me right now a device called the AO Scan. It literally will let me speak into it for 30 seconds and it'll read all my vital signs. It'll read my inner voice and report back out to me phenomenal things. And so as I've been part of this year, I decided to tag it, what if my body could speak? What would my body say to me? Is it ill? Does it need some help? Does it need some repair? Do I have a blocked artery back here? Possibly. All that is available now because of things like machine learning, collecting data for years, all within one device that looks just like a smartphone. And that smartphone can tell me how much shame I have, how much guilt, how much apathy, how much joy, how much love within me. Isn't that incredible? But that's the technology when we talk about a hyper-connected world, hyper-connected technology together to help other individuals. What if every student could understand who they truly are? So as I advance the slide here, you'll see on this AO Scan, I can literally take a look at that inner voice and find out how I'm functioning. These are my results, actually. I'm not too ashamed of them. I'm not perfect by any stretch, and you can see I too have issues with self-significance. Not unusual for people, and yet I can improve on it and measure it now daily or often as I want to find out if I'm making improvements. So imagine this technology through hyper-connected technologies available on a smartphone by literally just speaking into it. But take it a step further. I can now put on my ear bones a headset with that device, and it will go and send frequencies in my body and read all the frequencies out of my liver, my pancreas, my thyroid, my lymph nodes, arteries, DNA, chromosomes. And there's 10,000 pieces within this body that's been wonderfully made by God. And I get to now hear what it's saying and what it reflects. Isn't that incredible? But what if we could help students understand who they are? What is this metaverse called their body doing? How does it feel? What is it really here? And how does it better respond than to another person who has their own individualized metasphere within them? So I see a day when my own personal metasphere or a student's metasphere will meet the bigger metasphere, and it'll be even, I'll call it metaverse, a step above, because we're truly connecting not just technology, but the help to individuals in ways we never did before. I'm just giving you a couple slides here so you can see. This is pretty phenomenal, and this has been available for about a year now. Now, as we take a look, future schools are truly going to be metaverse-centric if designed correctly. And so back in 2016, I published a couple articles that said augmented and virtual reality will be at the center of disruption or change or transformation, whatever word you choose to use. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud computing, IoT, or Internet of Things are all peripheral technologies. By themselves are meaningless. But when you start tying to the human being immersive learning with augmented and virtual reality, soon to be called metaverse, now we're connected. We're connected in a more useful way. And so we have witnessed now when we immerse people into virtual and augmented reality, immersive learning, their life changes. Why? Because they're accelerating beyond what they did before. They're able to create, understand themselves better. And they're somewhat hidden from the classroom experience because they're somewhat self-absorbed into their immersive learning experience. So when you take a look at Microsoft, Apple, and Facebook all setting out for the metaverse, these are no longer the IBMs from 40 years ago or Microsoft or Apple of the day having a few $1 million to compete in the personal computer space. These are trillion-dollar companies who have invested billions to prove that augmented and virtual reality already are making a huge impact on corporate training, K-12, and higher education. And now they go as far as saying, let's create that metaverse to help out people. And they'll make their money, but will we partake? Will we understand how we interact and how we smartly design the schools of the future to be a eduverse, a digiverse? In our case, we called it the GeoVision design to reach the world. We could have easily called it the GeoVerse. And now everybody is catching up. But what's required? Leadership. And no matter how you look at it, Ford Motor Company may say and have said, we are no longer an auto company. We are a software company who happens to sell automobiles. And this article here by Accenture pretty much states this. It's very difficult to be a leader in any organization today without understanding technology. It has to play a part. And so I could show you article after article. What I'm doing is challenging you. Be a leader. Be the leader that understands how all this stuff connects for the betterment of people. You know, I don't serve anybody else except for our president and board of trustees and our students. Whatever they say they need is how we serve. But we help connect things so that we serve in a much more streamlined fashion. In fact, our provost, Dr. Kathleen Reed-Martinez, is here. She's a phenomenal person, has helped with the digital credentials on the blockchain so students can get their diploma immediately upon graduating. Here she is passing a blockchain certificate or digital certificate to Jordan Rawlinson, a graduate back in May of 2021. And it's a powerful thing to give that which a student paid for, invested in, immediately to them in a digital way where Jordan was able to send the verifiable evidence that he graduated to his employer. And so we're excited. Now, I believe Steve Jobs believed in this quote in a different fashion, and he realized that the first invention people don't understand. It's the innovation off the invention that people understand. And so Sid Caesar said the person who developed the first tire was an idiot, but the person who developed the other three was a genius, the automobile industry. And so Steve Jobs was a master at taking somebody else's invention. The iPad was somebody else's. You can go on and on. But nonetheless, he knew how to market it. He knew how to package it in a hyper-connected way in his own world. From packaging the iPad or the smartphone, he knew how to do it well. And so he was the person who invented the third wheel, if you would, to the computer industry's smart space. So as we take a look, you can see our president, Dr. William Wilson, here on Excellent magazine, and he's known to be a global thought leader. Why? Because he knows how to make decisions that are for the betterment of global education and how to help people become whole leaders for the whole world. Now, on the other side, you can see I was on the front cover of a magazine, Technology, and I'm helping mentor people from India, Africa, other parts of the world. Why? Because it matters. But everything we do is not first and foremost. Technology does not drive the show. Rather, the vision of the president and the board of trustees is what drives the show. We support that. We serve that. And if we will do it well, the students will, of course, benefit from that. And so we're excited. In summary, the future is for the bold, for the brave, if you would, but for those who are willing to be leaders and make decisions when they need to be made. We need to leverage technology and not purposely disrupt things. There's no sense trying to disrupt people's lives. Help leverage, help transform, help improve, but try not to disrupt people's lives. That makes no sense to me, never has. I think that's been developed by greedy technology companies who want to sell more product. I want to help people, hopefully you do too. Open your mind's eye and design for simplicity and convergence. Put people before technology. Put your heart before your mind. Design for play to learn. Golf does this wonderfully. People golf, they play as they golf, and they learn. Academia is set up much different. You've got to keep learning before you can play or work. I think there's a happy medium between those two. And accelerate your mind and not your work. And I'm privileged to just be part of what today was, joining other leaders around the world. Thank you, General Ray from Indus International Schools, for kicking this off. And if you need to get a hold of me, you want to have some suggestions, you want some criticism, send it my way as well. That's healthy. But if you have a question, how I might be able to help you accelerate your mind or help converge education with technology, converge the human being and technology for humanware, feel free to reach out to me. Again, we're not doing anything strange. We're just on the forefront of the future, the metaverse. It'll be there. Hopefully you're there enjoying what these trillion-dollar companies are designing for the betterment of humanity. Talk to you later.